Jean-Claude Van Damme finally breaks his silence on Steven Seagal, and what he says isn't just shocking, it's worse than anyone imagined.
At 64 years old, Jean-Claude Van Damme has finally broken his silence on one of the biggest feuds in action movie history. For decades, fans have heard whispers, rumors, and wild stories about the tension between Van Damme and Steven Seagal. But the real reason behind their rivalry? That's been a mystery, until now. What really happened between these two action legends, and why did Van Damme choose to speak out after all these years? Join us as we break down the full story and uncover the truth they never wanted you to know. The two kings of the video store. By the early 1990s, action movies were everywhere. If you walked into a video rental store, two names stood out like giants on the shelves: Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. These two were the biggest stars in martial arts films at the time, but they were completely different kinds of action heroes. Jean-Claude Van Damme was known for his powerful, beautiful kicks and athletic fighting style. His movies were packed with spinning jump kicks, tournament fights, and big emotional moments. His rise to fame started with Bloodsport, which introduced him to action fans all over the world. That movie wasn't just popular, it became a martial arts classic. After that came Kickboxer, where Van Damme's emotional story and brutal fight scenes made him a fan favorite. Then came Universal Soldier, where he went toe-to-toe with Dolph Lundgren, adding sci-fi action to his resume. Time Cop was another hit, showing that Van Damme could mix fighting with bigger Hollywood storytelling. By the time the mid-90s rolled around, Van Damme wasn't just a martial arts guy, he was an action movie star. On the other hand, Steven Seagal offered something totally different. His fighting style was calm, smooth, and dangerous. Seagal used Aikido, a martial art that focused on joint locks, wrist throws, and controlling opponents without needing to punch or kick. His first movie, Above the Law, showed a new kind of martial arts hero: quiet, serious, and deadly. After that came Hard to Kill, where his tough, no-nonsense image grew. Then Under Siege became his biggest hit, with Seagal playing a Navy cook who takes down terrorists on a battleship. This film made him a mainstream star. Both Van Damme and Seagal were kings of their world. They didn't just star in action movies, they defined action movies for a generation of fans. Martial arts students looked up to them, and kids practiced their moves in front of the TV. But something was missing. Even though they were the two biggest martial arts stars of their time, they never worked together. They didn't appear at the same events. They didn't talk about each other in interviews. Fans didn't know why yet, but the two kings of the video store were already avoiding each other. And soon, the truth about their hidden rivalry would start to leak out. For a while, everything seemed normal on the surface. The magazines, TV shows, and interviews kept the spotlight on their movies. No one was throwing punches at award shows. But behind the cameras, the first signs of tension were already starting to build. And it didn't come from Van Damme. It started with Seagal. Steven Seagal had a habit of making sharp comments about other martial artists. He never attacked anyone openly by name, but if you listened closely, you could tell who he was talking about. In several interviews, when asked about other martial artists in Hollywood, Seagal made jokes about actors who think ballet makes you a fighter. To the regular viewer, it might have sounded like a random insult, but insiders knew exactly who he meant: Jean-Claude Van Damme. Van Damme had trained in ballet as part of his early martial arts training. He often spoke openly about it, saying ballet helped with balance, flexibility, and strength. But Seagal didn't care about that. He used ballet as a way to discredit Van Damme's fighting ability. Calling him just a dancer was a calculated move to make Van Damme look soft in the eyes of martial arts fans. Even though Seagal never said Van Damme's name in these interviews, everyone behind the scenes picked up on the message. This wasn't just one random insult either. Over time, Seagal made several comments in the same tone, always hinting that other martial artists in Hollywood weren't real fighters. And the target of these hints was usually the guy with the spinning kicks and ballet training: Van Damme. Industry insiders, stunt coordinators, producers, and martial arts choreographers started to talk about it. They knew Seagal didn't respect Van Damme, not as a martial artist, not as an actor, not as a man, and they knew the feeling was starting to spread behind the scenes. One producer would later say that even if the public didn't know what was going on, those working in Hollywood could feel the tension growing between these two stars. The surprising part was that Van Damme didn't respond. Not in interviews, not on red carpets, not even through movie roles. He just kept working, kept training, and kept focusing on making the next hit film. To many fans, it looked like Van Damme didn't care what Seagal thought. But people working in the industry knew the truth. Van Damme heard the insults, but he chose not to answer them, at least not yet. Even so, people who worked with both of them, especially stuntmen and fight choreographers, noticed something. These two should not be in the same room. Word spread around Hollywood to keep them apart. Producers knew that if they were at the same party, on the same set, or even at the same event, trouble could happen. There were no public fights, no screaming matches, but the tension was real, and everyone felt it. This was the start of what people would later call the Silent War. No tabloid headlines, no interviews full of insults, just quiet hostility. Two of the biggest martial arts stars in the world pretending like the other didn't exist, all while their fans debated who was better. And soon that silent war was about to explode in a way no one expected. The legendary party at Stallone's mansion. By the late 1990s, action movies were starting to change. The old-school muscle-bound heroes of the 80s and early 90s were now competing with new stars and fresh styles of filmmaking. But back then, the legends of action cinema were still around, and their names carried weight. That's what made this one particular night so special. It was a rare moment when many of these big stars were in the same place at the same time. The event was a party hosted by none other than Sylvester Stallone himself. Stallone wasn't just the guy from Rocky and Rambo. He was also one of the major faces of action films, right alongside Arnold Schwarzenegger and Bruce Willis. Stallone's parties were known to bring together the biggest names in Hollywood, especially those from the action world. This particular night at Stallone's mansion was supposed to be a fun, relaxed gathering. It wasn't an official event or a business meeting. It was just a private party filled with famous faces, guys who, for years, had been blowing things up on screen, fighting bad guys and saving the world, all in the name of cinema. Schwarzenegger was there, Bruce Willis was there, Van Damme was there, and yes, Steven Seagal showed up too. For fans of action movies, this lineup was like a dream come true. Imagine the stars of Die Hard, Terminator, Bloodsport, and Under Siege all hanging out in one place. It was supposed to be a cool, peaceful evening. Old rivals putting differences aside, having drinks and sharing stories. But what no one expected was that this night would finally bring years of quiet tension to the surface. For years, Steven Seagal had been making those quiet, sneaky insults about Jean-Claude Van Damme. He'd never said his name out loud in interviews, but everyone knew. The jabs about ballet, the dismissive comments about certain actors pretending to know martial arts. It had been building like a slow burn. But at Stallone's party, it wasn't quiet anymore. According to people who were there, Seagal started running his mouth again, making fun of Van Damme's background and questioning if he was even a real fighter. This time, though, Van Damme was right there, and he heard it. No whispers, no secret interviews. This was face-to-face, and Van Damme wasn't going to let it slide anymore. For most of his career, Van Damme had ignored these insults. He let his movies do the talking, but in that moment, in front of the biggest names in action cinema, Van Damme had enough. He stood up and directly challenged Seagal right there at the party. The way it's been told by insiders and later confirmed by Stallone himself, Van Damme basically told Seagal, "Let's go outside and settle this right now." It wasn't for show. It wasn't for cameras. It was personal. Van Damme wanted to handle it man-to-man, not with words, but with action, the way martial artists settle things. Everyone at the party could feel the shift. What started as a fun Hollywood night suddenly felt tense. It wasn't a movie scene. It was real life. And two of the biggest martial arts stars of that era were about to throw down in Stallone's backyard. And then came the twist that no one saw coming. Steven Seagal, famous for playing tough, unbeatable characters on screen, didn't accept the challenge. He didn't stand up. He didn't walk outside. He didn't say, "Let's do it." Instead, Seagal laughed it off. He acted like it was beneath him, like fighting Van Damme was a waste of time. Some people in the room thought maybe Seagal was trying to stay above it. Others thought maybe he was caught off guard. Either way, the message was clear. Seagal wasn't interested in fighting. But Van Damme wasn't finished yet. Later that same night, the two of them ended up at the same nightclub. Once again, Van Damme approached Seagal and made the same offer. Let's settle this. This wasn't drunk talk or acting tough in front of cameras. Van Damme was serious, and once again, Seagal refused. Twice in one night, Seagal backed away from a fight he had been hinting at for years. The story spread quickly in Hollywood circles. Everyone started talking about it. This wasn't just gossip, it was a major moment in action movie history. Years later, Sylvester Stallone would confirm the story himself. He said it clearly. Van Damme was too strong. Seagal didn't want that fight. Coming from Stallone, that meant a lot. He wasn't picking sides, he was just telling what happened. And what happened to their careers after that? You're going to want to hear how this rivalry shaped the rest of their lives. The $20 million fight that never happened. By the early 2000s, the rivalry between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal had become part of Hollywood legend. Their careers had taken different paths. Van Damme was still active in martial arts films, while Seagal was doing more straight-to-video projects. Both of them still had loyal fans, and the idea of them finally facing off was something people had dreamed about for years. That's when one of the most surprising offers in Hollywood history came forward. An offer that could have changed everything. Peter Guber, one of the most powerful producers in Hollywood and former chairman of Sony Pictures, stepped in with a bold idea. It wasn't for a movie. It wasn't for a press tour. It was for a real fight. A genuine, sanctioned martial arts bout between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal. No stunt doubles, no scripts, no acting, just a straight fight in front of the world. The deal on the table was huge. $20 million for Van Damme. $20 million for Seagal. That was serious money, even by early 2000s Hollywood standards. The location chosen for this event was the Mirage in Las Vegas, a perfect venue for a fight of this size. Vegas has hosted some of the biggest boxing matches and UFC events in history. This fight could have been one of the biggest celebrity combat events of all time. It had the potential to bring in millions from ticket sales, pay-per-view, sponsorships, and media coverage. When the offer was brought to Van Damme, his reaction was immediate and clear. "I said yes immediately," Van Damme would later reveal. For Van Damme, this was more than just about money, it was about respect. It was about finally silencing years of Seagal's dismissive remarks, the ballet insults, the hidden jabs, and the two refusals from that night at Stallone's party. Van Damme was ready to show the world, in a controlled environment, that he was not just a movie star, he was a real fighter. But the response from Seagal was nothing. Complete silence. No negotiations, no counteroffers, no statements from his team. Not even a polite decline. Seagal never showed up to the table, never responded to the challenge, and basically disappeared when it came to the fight. It was as if the offer didn't exist to him. This wasn't just about the two stars anymore. This was now about public image. Van Damme had stepped forward, ready to fight, willing to risk his reputation, willing to put it all on the line in front of millions. Seagal's silence spoke louder than any insult he'd ever said in an interview. What's interesting about this whole story is that the world didn't know about it when it happened. Back in the early 2000s, there were no viral TikToks, no YouTube channels breaking celebrity news every hour, and social media wasn't what it is today. This offer was kept mostly behind closed doors. Only a few insiders in Hollywood and martial arts circles knew that this $20 million fight was even being discussed. It wasn't until 2023 that the truth finally came out. During an interview, Van Damme talked about the proposed fight for the first time. His tone wasn't angry or boastful. He just laid out the facts. The fight was offered. He said yes, right away. Seagal said nothing, and that was it. No drama, no trash talk, just a missed opportunity for something that could have been historic. Once Van Damme shared the story, the martial arts world reacted fast. Fans who grew up watching Bloodsport, Kickboxer, Under Siege, and Hard to Kill jumped onto forums and social media to talk about what could have been. The question started spreading everywhere. Why didn't Seagal take the fight? Everyone had their theories. Some people thought it was fear. Maybe Seagal deep down knew that Van Damme's years of real fighting experience in karate, kickboxing and full-contact tournaments were too much to handle. Others thought it was ego, that Seagal didn't want to risk his carefully crafted image as an unbeatable martial arts master. He had spent years promoting himself as a deadly fighter trained in Aikido. What if he lost in front of millions? That could destroy his whole brand. Another theory suggested that maybe Seagal just wasn't interested in fighting for sport. Maybe he thought it was beneath him, or that it wasn't worth the trouble. But without any response from Seagal himself, no one really knew for sure. One of the most interesting parts of this story is how Van Damme handled it. He didn't brag. He didn't go on a media tour attacking Seagal's character. He didn't turn it into a circus. He simply told the story, let the facts stand, and moved on. It wasn't about revenge or ego for Van Damme anymore. It was just about telling the truth. If the fight had happened, it could have been one of the biggest martial arts events of the decade. Picture it, two of the greatest action stars of their generation, facing off in a real fight, with the entire world watching. But instead it stayed a what-if moment, a missed chance, a story that only added to the legend of their rivalry. But even though the fight never happened, the story of these two legends wasn't over yet. The Instagram illusion. For over 3 decades, the rivalry between Jean-Claude Van Damme and Steven Seagal had been one of Hollywood's most talked-about Cold Wars. From subtle insults to the almost fight at Stallone's party and the $20 million bout that never happened, fans thought they knew how the story was going to end. Two aging action heroes, living their separate lives with unfinished business hanging in the air. But then, out of nowhere, something happened that nobody saw coming. In 2023, Van Damme posted a photo on Instagram that instantly set the internet on fire. It wasn't a throwback. It wasn't a movie poster. It wasn't even staged with fans or other celebrities. It was a simple, recent photo of Jean-Claude Van Damme having dinner with Steven Seagal. For longtime fans of action movies, it was hard to believe at first. Were their eyes tricking them? Were they seeing two men who had been bitter rivals for 30 years, smiling at a dinner table together? But it was real. And the caption underneath made it even stranger. "Thank you, Steven, and your family for the fantastic dinner. Big announcement coming soon." That caption exploded online within minutes. The biggest stars of 80s and 90s martial arts movies, who were supposed to despise each other, were now suddenly sharing polite dinners. Fans didn't know what to make of it. Was this a real truce? Were they finally burying the hatchet? Was this a build-up to a movie collaboration? Or was it finally happening? A real fight being planned at last? The mystery was wide open, and the action movie community was buzzing with questions. It didn't take long for social media detectives to get to work. Frame by frame, they analyzed the photo like it was evidence from a crime scene. Was Van Damme's smile real, or was it forced? Why did Steven Seagal have that stone-faced, emotionless look? Was it just his usual public appearance, or was there tension behind that stare? Then came the theories. The first wave of fans was optimistic. They believed this was a well-planned move to announce a long-awaited project. "This is it," they said. "They're going to finally fight, or at least do a movie together." Some fans suggested a movie along the lines of The Expendables, where aging action stars unite for one last big mission. Others thought it might be a documentary about their history, a full breakdown of their rivalry, filmed and produced to tell the whole truth. But not everyone was convinced. Another group of fans was suspicious. "This smells fake," they said. Something about the whole thing felt too neat, too staged. Where were the behind-the-scenes videos? Where was the handshake? Where was the video clip of them talking about their shared history or laughing together about the old days? None of that existed. It was just one single picture with no other context, and the caption "Big announcement coming soon" felt more like bait than a celebration of a true friendship. The more people looked, the more questions they had. Why now? Why after decades of ignoring each other? Why at a personal dinner, not at an event or professional shoot? Nothing added up, and that only made the theories spiral further. As the dust settled a bit and people looked closer, they started noticing some unsettling details about the entire situation. First of all, there was no handshake, no posed shot of the two clasping hands in a symbol of brotherhood or forgiveness. If this was truly a reunion after years of tension, wouldn't they want to show that? Wouldn't that be the natural move? There was also no genuine laughter in the photo. Van Damme looked polite. Seagal looked passive. No smiling with teeth, no personal warmth. It almost looked like two people forced into a photo for the sake of appearances. Fans even noticed that the photo was carefully cropped. There were no signs of what was going on around them, no other faces clearly in the shot, and no decorations or clues about the atmosphere of the dinner. Just two icons sitting together. Then there was the strange part about the dinner itself. It was Seagal's birthday dinner. That might explain why the meeting happened, but it didn't explain why it was suddenly turned into a public event on Van Damme's Instagram. Van Damme posting that picture was what made it explode into public view. Before that, it was just a private dinner among friends, or at least among colleagues. Why take a quiet dinner and make it an international headline? And then, of course, the caption. It was the part nobody could stop thinking about. Big announcement coming soon. Those 4 words kept people awake at night, wondering what was really happening. If it was a movie, why not just say it? If it was a real fight being discussed, why be vague? And if it was just dinner, why tease something that might not exist at all? The timing made it even more suspicious. After so many years of staying silent about each other, after the nearly forgotten $20 million fight offer, and after all the personal history between them, this sudden cozy dinner didn't seem to make sense. It almost felt like it was being used to spark interest, to keep the old rivalry alive in the public eye. As days turned into weeks, no announcement came. The photo remained, the caption remained, and the mystery only deepened. Fans started debating whether they had been played. Was this just a clever PR stunt? Was it a genuine peace offering that fizzled out behind closed doors? Or was it just two aging stars grabbing one last piece of attention from their long-standing rivalry? One thing was for sure, the photo worked. It reignited interest, it stirred the fan base, and it put Van Damme and Seagal right back into conversations where they hadn't been in years. Van Damme breaks his silence. For years, Jean-Claude Van Damme had stayed mostly quiet when it came to the long-running rivalry between him and Steven Seagal. Sure, fans knew about the tension. People talked about the Stallone party incident. The $20 million fight that never happened had become legend. But through it all, Van Damme never fully opened up about what really went on behind the scenes. That changed in late 2023. It wasn't done with a flashy press event or dramatic social media video. No hype, no build-up. Instead, it was a single, quiet interview with a European martial arts magazine. The setting was low-key, almost like Van Damme was finally tired of carrying the weight of silence on his shoulders. And during that conversation, he finally spoke the words that broke the myth open for good. He is a fraud. Those 3 words hit harder than any punch thrown in any of their films. It wasn't said with anger. It wasn't shouted. It was calm, direct, almost sad. But it carried the full truth behind decades of rivalry, misunderstandings, and fake stories. After that, fans finally knew. The drama wasn't just about bruised egos. It was about truth versus lies. The interview spread across social media like wildfire. News sites picked it up. Martial arts forums exploded with reactions. Everyone wanted to know more, and Van Damme finally gave them answers. For a long time, the rivalry between Seagal and Van Damme had seemed like a typical Hollywood clash. 2 stars competing for the same spotlight. But Van Damme made it clear that it went deeper than that. It wasn't just about who was a better actor, who had better fight scenes, or who sold more tickets. It was about something more personal, respect for martial arts. In the interview, Van Damme laid it all out simply. According to him, the real root of the tension was Seagal's lies. Stories Seagal had told for years in interviews and behind the scenes. These were not harmless exaggerations. They were big, bold claims. Stories about secret CIA missions, tales of fighting in covert operations overseas, claims that he was some kind of real-life lethal weapon who used martial arts in life-or-death situations for governments around the world. Van Damme explained exactly why that bothered him so much. He had spent his early years fighting in real tournaments, training in full-contact kickboxing, and stepping into rings where real punches landed and real fights were won or lost. His injuries were real, his training was real, his fight career, though not long, was legitimate. And Seagal? Van Damme said it clearly. He's never fought in a real tournament. Not one. Never stepped into a real ring like I did. That statement was like a hammer striking the very heart of Seagal's tough guy reputation. Fans of martial arts cinema had always wondered how much of Seagal's background was real and how much was just Hollywood storytelling. Van Damme answered that question without hesitation. Then he brought up the infamous $20 million Las Vegas fight. This wasn't something made up by fans or gossip sites. It was a real offer from producer Peter Guber. Van Damme explained that the deal was fair, $20 million for each of them. A fight held in one of the biggest venues in Las Vegas, the Mirage. A full media event with cameras, press coverage, the works. And most importantly, a chance for both men to back up their words with action. Van Damme's side of the story was simple. Same offer for both of us. I said yes, he didn't. For years, people had wondered why that fight never happened. Now they knew. Van Damme had agreed. Seagal had ignored it. There was no comeback from that revelation. No one could spin it differently. The truth was now out there, and it wasn't going away. After addressing the lies and the fight that never happened, Van Damme finally talked about the strange Instagram photo that had confused so many fans. According to him, that dinner wasn't about making peace, signing a movie deal, or finally teaming up. It wasn't a truce. It was an observation. I wanted to see if he had changed, Van Damme explained. That dinner wasn't friendship. It was observation. He talked about how the dinner happened through mutual connections, and it seemed like a good opportunity to finally meet face-to-face without tension, without the Hollywood spotlight. But what Van Damme saw that night didn't impress him. He didn't see growth. He didn't see humility. What he saw was the same person he had clashed with decades before, the same ego, the same distance, the same person pretending to be something he wasn't. And as for that caption, "Big announcement coming soon," Van Damme admitted that it was put there to stir curiosity. Maybe part of him wanted to see if something good could come of it. Maybe he thought there could be some kind of positive resolution. But in the end, it led to nothing. There would be no big movie, no long-awaited fight, no documentary, just closure, just truth. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next video on Hollywood's biggest behind-the-scenes stories.